Welcome to Sacrilegious Discourse.
For this is what the Sovereign Lord says.
Why do you need prophets to tell people who you are and what you want?
If you can justify everything that the God of the Bible has done, then you can justify any of your behavior.
A lot of this mentality is trickling into what is now mainstream right-wing Christianity.
I am capable of empathy greater than this God of the Bible.
This is a Bible that they tell kids. This is the good Lord. This is the good book. He is fantasizing about murder, mass murder.
Head over to sacrilegiousdiscourse.com right now to find out how to leave us a review or support us on Patreon.
Hey there, sinners and saints. It's your favorite Bible-bashing duo from Sacrilegious Discourse, and we need your help.
That's right, folks. We're raising funds for some heavenly equipment and a studio that doesn't sound like it's in the depths of hell.
Our current setup, let's just say it's more apocalypse than audiophile.
So if you want to hear us dissect the Bible without the background noise of demonic squirrels, chip in a few bucks.
We're aiming for $5,000 to upgrade our audio and build a studio worthy of blasphemous banter.
Donate today and help us spread the good word of atheism.
You can find a link right on our homepage, sacrilegiousdiscourse.com. Every dollar counts.
Even if it's from your collection plate. Husband!
Wife!
What the fuck are you doing?
Well, we are doing a special Patreon episode today.
We are.
We are. And,
what's it all about?
well, it's about something. This is near and dear to why I enjoy doing this podcast and why I am so inclined to keep doing this podcast, because of how it affects me with regard to the hate that gets brought toward us from the others, from the Republicans, from the Christians, from the side that doesn't quite understand the history behind it all, that doesn't care to understand the history behind it all.
Or the kind that knows the history and doesn't care because it doesn't fit their agenda that feeds their power-hungry or greedy ways.
Right. So, I mean, this is going to be a bit of a history lesson. So, like, for pretty much over a century, white Christian nationalists have been using the word socialism or communism to silence their rivals. And whether it was Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights movements, feminists, or today the LGBTQ community, they have been using this as a way to justify their oppression of Americans. Mm-hmm. And in this episode, what we're going to try to do is we're going to go back through the history of how communism and socialism have been used as a convenient scapegoat to silence religious and political opponents. Yeah, sorry.
So basically, like, every time I don't like something, I just say, ew, you're a communist. And that...
I mean, yeah, I get so sick of hearing that rhetoric, and I hear it all the time.
And it's like, I don't think that word means what you think it means.
It doesn't.
Right.
It absolutely doesn't. And that's the part that always really just gets me. And you can't explain it away because it's so ingrained in who we are as Americans, quote unquote.
Right.
Right. It's not actually that way, but like a lot of people just see it this way because of how they have been trained to think about this.
Right.
So that's what we're going to be going over today.
Okay.
And are you ready to get into this?
Patreon. Yeah.
All right, let's do this.
Okie dokie.
All right, so we're going to start off this episode way back in the early 1900s.
Okay. That's long ago.
It really is.
That's when the dinosaurs were walking the earth, right?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, so we're going to go back to kind of the origins of the anti-communist Christian nationalism, which was back during the 1910s to 1930s. And a lot of this started with the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, which happened in 1917.
What's a Bolshevik? What is that?
Well, so it was the first openly atheist government in modern history.
Huh.
And the reason that American Protestants associate socialism with atheism is that they are fearing that ideology could undermine the Christian dominance. Mm-hmm. And it also was started by people who were predominantly Jewish. So a lot of the Jewish hate that happens in our society happens because of this.
So it's not just because they killed Jesus.
Right. Well, I mean, well, yeah, but I mean, there's some aspect of that, right?
Obviously.
But you may have noticed in the time that we've done this podcast that a lot of the things that we get yelled at about are kind of tied in with the same things that Jewish folks get yelled at about.
Yeah.
And it's not real clear where that line is and why that line is, right?
Like the heathens and the Jews is the way they would say it.
Yeah.
Not the Jewish people, the Jews.
Right.
So insulting.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was the beginning of, like, because they tied the first atheist government to a threat against Christianity. This was kind of the beginning of that hatred of specific of communism. Okay. And communism, we'll get into a little bit later, but communism ties into socialism in a way. Like if you read Karl Marx, and then this is a very glazed over version, but essentially, there is said to get to true socialism, you need to have communism in order to get there, according to that. And regardless, what we have today is a mixture of democratic socialists or socialist democracies and, republics like ours that have some socialism in them with things like social media, or not social media, social security and, different things that we pay for through our government that they take care of, right? It's kind of mixed into governments at this point. And there's no real true communist or true socialist or true capitalist society on the planet.
Or even
those things just don't exist.
Not even a true democracy if you want to get down to that. I mean,
Right. So we're all a mixture of different different political ideas, right? And that's the problem right off the bat, because you're talking to people that think we are just one thing,
right?
And you can't hardly convince them that we're a mixture of multiple different things.
Okay, now I have a question. This might be off topic, so if you need to edit it out,
no, you're fine. You're fine.
But my parents in both, but my mom in particular has always. I can remember since I was a child, repeated this phrase. We are not a democracy. We're a republic. But the way she said it, I couldn't tell if she was like excited because that's a good thing, or if she was like, I know a thing and I'm happy I know it. And that's exciting. Like, so how do Republicans feel about that? Do they like that we're not a democracy, we're a republic?
I think they just like being the most correct, and they like feeling superior to you.
Okay.
That's what it boils down to in that case.
Okay.
That's my opinion as to, like, I'm basing this based off of your mom,
right, because,
saying
like,
this to you, because it just feels like it's more of her wanting to be right about something.
Repeating, I know a piece of news that I heard.
Yeah.
Because, like, I guarantee you if I asked her, what do you mean by that? And is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Right.
And it's like, no, actually, we're both, but thank you for playing.
Yeah.
We're a democratic republic.
Right.
Go team.
Yes. So in the 1919 to 1920s, a lot of the Protestant leaders pushed the idea that communism is a Jewish-led conspiracy, and there were a lot of anti-Semitic tropes that tie into Christian nationalism. So, like, there was a lot of people at the time, like Henry Ford was one of the most famous people that was making propaganda against the Jewish folks.
He was extremely
anti-Semitic. Yes. And he had a book that he had put out that was pushed all over the place, and it had, like, the Jews were secretly controlling banks and the press, the governments. They were behind communism because, that's going to destroy Christianity. It's this, that's the whole plot is that Jewish people through communism, which is secular, is going to destroy Christianity. That's the whole thought. And does that sound very, very familiar to you?
It really does, but it also explains a lot. Like, growing up in the 80s, I was born in 75. So growing up in the 80s, it was just like understood that we all hate the Russians. And I mean, yeah, they're a dangerous country, or their leaders are dangerous. The people are probably fine. I mean, From what I understand, they're just people trying to go about their business like we are.
Yeah.
But the leaders are like, whoa, we hate Russia. And yet now today we love the Jewish people because of Israel, and we love Russia because of something. And so that just feels so weird. But to go back to what you're saying, that hatred of communism and all that explains why it was just understood, no, we just hate Russia, period.
Yeah.
Besides the nukes and stuff like that, it was a very emotional, we hate Russia growing up.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. And that's part of what, this all came from these ideas, like eventually, like if you just take this back, we could have gone back even further to like 1865 when the Ku Klux Klan started.
Right.
There was this doesn't tie into the socialism and communism aspect of it, but there was a lot of Christianity as being threatened by these ideas of liberalism and they were angry at Jewish folks and they were angry at Catholics, and so all of this kind of like starts tying in as a country in the early 1900s, and they start bringing these ideologies together, and that's where this hatred kind of mingles and mixes and turns into what we're going to go through here, but what it is today eventually.
I appreciate that, because I always wondered why, like, to me, up until Charlottesville, I always just associated the KKK with white superiority and people that hate Black people, right? And like that's all it was in my head. But then seeing the guys in khakis with their tiki torches screaming, "Jews will not replace us," made me realize that it was more than just that they hate Black people. They also hate the Jewish people, like almost even more, except that I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, it's all kind of, it's all springs from the same areas.
Got it.
And even with like, I never understood as a kid why Catholics had such a bad rap. Like it was a big deal that Kennedy got elected when he did, because he was the first Catholic president in America. And even now we still say that Joe Biden was a Catholic president because it's a thing.
It's a thing.
Yeah. Well, back when in the 1920s again, 1930s, that time frame, part of this propaganda that was happening was towards the Catholics as well, because they were being led by somebody in another country, the Pope from Rome, and they claimed that they were driving immigration to the United States to usurp our country with this non-Protestant idea of Catholicism, and it was being done by somebody overseas, and this is undermining our whole. So that ties into the KKK. It ties into that whole idea of how they
what's un-American,
and
what makes us a Christian nation in their mind. That is fascinating, because like a decade ago, I was part of a scrapbooking group, and the majority of the women there were Catholic, which I had never been around Catholic people that I knew of. They spoke about like going to church on Sunday and going to mass and stuff.
Yeah,
so like, I'm sure I've been around Catholic people. This was the first time I was in a relaxed setting where they were speaking about it regularly. And they were very, very nasty about Jewish people.
Right. And but they used to be just as... used to be just as hated as a group. That's
what I'm saying. Like, that is fascinating to me that there's room for that when they were both hated equally.
Sure, but I think that has happened before, where a group not suddenly, but over time becomes accepted as a mainstreamed group, right?
And they pull up the ladder behind them.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you can get on board with, making light of somebody else's plight and not your own, that makes you part of that group and not the other. Right. The quote unquote lesser group.
Right.
So that it makes sense why they would choose to just go that route. Right. I'm going to go ahead and move on.
Yeah, no, that's
so
fine.
We got...
Sorry, I keep interrupting. I'm
I'm
so
trying. There's a lot to go through here, and I apologize because I'm trying to keep it all cohesive in my mind as to what I'm doing here. But after we get done with the 1920s and 1930s, we go into the 1940s and 1950s. Okay. And during this time, we had McCarthyism and the weaponization of anti-communist Christianity. Okay. And at that time, 1947, we'll just say, Harry Truman declares a Cold War against the Soviet communism, and Christian leaders frame this as a religious battle between the godless Soviets and Christian America.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that this was like a religious war.
Right.
As well as.
I mean, it is. So
I have heard of McCarthyism, and I saw the movie that what's his name was in. That was so good. He's Ace Ventura guy. What's his name?
Jeez, I'm just so on a different track here.
I
can't
know.
even think of it.
I'm sorry, but he was in that movie. I think it was called The Majestic. But anyway, it was about McCarthyism. I should know his name right off.
I know who he is. No doubt.
And he was married to what's her name?
Why are you doing this to me?
And she was anti-vax, and I think they got divorced. But anyway,
Jim Carrey.
Yeah. Yes. So anyway, I was aware of McCarthyism.
Yes.
And I was aware of it being a political movement and, seeking out those people that they assumed had that ideology. But I didn't know it was based around Christianity, because I always thought, what does it matter? Why do you hate a communist so hard?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Right. Yeah. No, it's weird. I think that it's always good for people to have an enemy. Not good, but that's what motivates them to, say the other side's bad, right? Mm-hmm. I'm better because I'm not this.
Right.
I jumped ahead a little bit with the Harry Truman in 1947 declaring the Cold War. But during the 1940s and 1950s, Senator Joseph McCarthy, he was an evangelical leader, Joseph McCarthy and evangelical leaders, white Christian nationalists, framed communism as an attack on America's moral and racial purity. They used anti-communist rhetoric to push ideas of white racial supremacy by tying communism to racial integration and civil rights, Christian fundamentalism by claiming communism was an atheist movement to destroy religion, gender roles and traditional family values by portraying communists as feminist and LGBTQ plus activists.
Oh.
Yeah. This allowed McCarthyism to go beyond politics, turning the anti-communist crusade into a moral and racial war against the progressive social change.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's why my parents, being born in the 50s, would have come up with those ideas that Russia bad and communism bad, and
yes.
But they weren't religious, so at that time, like they are now. But I'm putting this all together with who my parents are.
Oh yeah. And just to run down a few things during this time, there was witch hunts for people that were considered quote unquote communists or whatever, progressives even.
Right.
It's a crazy time and scary considering the current climate that we're in.
Yes. Yes.
There was government blacklists for civil rights activists, feminists, and progressives. There was you probably heard of Billy Graham. Mm-hmm. He was in support. He was on the anti-communist crusade, and he was calling communism Satan's ideology.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And in 1954, which is slightly past this time frame, but under God was added to the Pledge of Allegiance as a direct reaction to communism.
That's so funny because most Christians today just seem to think that we've always had the Pledge of Allegiance and it's always been said the way it is.
Right.
It's never
they
not
definitely
been there.
believe that. Yeah. And even the In God We Trust and Our Money was a new phenomenon too.
Yeah.
That was in that same time frame actually.
That makes sense.
So.
But if you were to ask them, no, that's always been there. It's always been that way.
Right. No, they don't know. They don't know any better. So going a little further past the 50s, we get into the 60s, and white Christian conservatives were beginning to call Martin Luther King Jr. a communist.
Oh.
And again, it's that tie-in between racism and progressivism and all this that's linking back to these same ideas from way back that are pulling through to now. And it's you're taking advantage of this ongoing anger that they have created.
Right. They're still creating it to this day. They are just aiming the gun some other direction.
Yeah. No, and we even had our FBI director at the time, J. Edgar Hoover, who was a devout Christian nationalist, and he was doing surveillance on King and trying to expose him to be a socialist radical. And ultimately he got murdered from all this. That was, and I'm not going to get into the
conspiracy
hows, what fors, and all that, but oftentimes, because of these things that they were doing, white churches refused to support the civil rights at the time. They claimed it was a Marxist attack on Christian values. So we're still going back into that socialist idea. Mm-hmm. They're still pulling that out. This is still just coming through all through these decades from early on. They were when black churches began supporting integration, they they started burning,
supporting what?
When black churches were supporting integration.
Oh, integration. I'm sorry.
The Christian extremist groups like the KKK and other people were actually burning down churches, and there was lynchings. There was all kinds of things happening. Mm-hmm. This was a callback to stuff that was happening in the late 1800s.
Okay, I mean,
they were going all out with the violence and everything during this time frame. So it was.
I knew it was a reaction to the civil rights movement, but I didn't realize that it was just a rehash of the old religious war.
I mean, it's a rehash of the old religious war. It's a reaction to the civil rights. It's a reaction to the fact that they've been told that these people are socialists / communists. You know, there's so much propaganda being levied at these groups of people that if you are on the white Christian nationalist side, you're seeing these people as a direct threat to your country, to your way of living. That's how they're being portrayed to you. Mm-hmm. You know, like you don't have any choice but to fight back against these people, right?
Right.
These people. Right. And they're separate. They're not equal.
Right.
You know, and that's the scary part is that, you know, we've been pitched our entire life that the United States is a melting pot, but it's not. We definitely discriminate mm-hmm. against certain groups of people that we do not agree with if you are a white Christian.
Yeah.
Generally. I'm speaking in very large generalities here.
No. I always liked the idea that we're a melting pot.
Yeah.
I love that we're a country composed of so many different nationalities that all decided to get together as one. Like, there's just something so beautiful about that. And I hate that idea is not true and that it has been taken out from under, like an arrow through my heart, you know?
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that 100%.
I kind of wish that they wouldn't teach kids that that's what it is. It's so disappointing when you become an adult and you learn how the world really is. And it's like, oh, we're not lovey-dovey. We are only as diverse as we will allow it to be in the moment. And if we Americans had our druthers, it would not be diverse at all.
Right.
How are we selling this story of melting pot at the same time that we're also like, but not really, we don't want to be a melting pot. We're a melting pot, but we don't want to be.
That's part of the propaganda. That's part of the whole pitch, right? We are a melting pot. We have a lot of people from different cultures that live here. Mm-hmm. So we can't, you know, very well say that we're a loving, accepting nation if we aren't a quote unquote melting pot, right? Mm-hmm. So let's push that idea. And then just in the background, we're going to hate these people.
Right.
You know, like that's how it generally works out.
So we'll say we're a melting pot, but what we're really trying to do is use a sifter to get out the quote unquote lumps.
I mean, that's essentially how it works out.
It's so gross.
Yeah. It's going to go a little faster here for a couple of decades. So between the 1970s and 1990s, it was the rise of the religious right and Christian culture wars.
Oh, and satanic panic.
Well, that was in there. I didn't cover that. I'm not covering that in this group.
That's regrettable. Satanic panic. Razor blades in the apples.
But the new Red Scare, you know, as the McCarthyism, whatever you want to call it in any generation, it's the same idea with socialism, Marxism, communism, kind of pulling through that thread and tying into atheism, secularism, Judaism, all this stuff, you know, black versus white, all this stuff ties into the same thing. It's all the same.
That's so weird.
Yeah. So 1979, you've heard of Jerry Falwell, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay. He was a prominent Christian, you know, pastor, preacher, whatever the hell he was. I don't remember exactly.
Sure.
But he coined the phrase the moral majority. Mm. You've heard that before, I'm assuming, too?
Yeah.
And it frames feminism, abortion rights, LGBTQ plus, all as Marxist plots to destroy America. Mm. So he's taking this Christian slant and saying that all these things that we've already been discussing, all these things are here to destroy this Christian nation of ours, right? And that's the message that gets pushed. And we're in the midst of big time television, church, you know, type
evangelical
stuff.
television.
Evangelical television. Yeah. So it's getting pushed out to the masses, and everybody knows Jerry Falwell's name because he's on fucking TV.
Right.
And everybody knows his name because he's on fucking TV.
Wait, wasn't he mentioned, like, wasn't he a character? I mean, not him, but didn't an actor portray him in that Tammy Faye movie that we watched?
I believe he was in that movie as one of the, I'm pretty sure he was. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while since we watched that movie, but I can't even remember the name of the movie. But
no, me neither. It was just Tammy Faye, and it went up for an Oscar a few years ago.
It did,
and it was really good.
It was, and it was really good. During this time frame, though, we're going to move into like 1980s here.
Okay.
So the Reagan administration takes over. So Reagan takes over. Well, no. So here's the thing, right? Reagan took over with he had a mandate. If there was ever a mandate, Reagan had the mandate.
Here's the thing. I have emotional baggage where the name Reagan is concerned.
Yeah.
Because growing up, my dad had a picture of him on the wall and still does to this day, a framed image of Ronald Reagan. Right. So my feeling, the second I hear Reagan, I'm just like, bleh, barf.
No, and as do I. But we have to acknowledge that he was a force to be reckoned with in politics.
Sure.
He was very charismatic. He was able to give really good speeches that worked up, crowds and got them, very enthusiastic about his ideas. Right. So, he did all the right things with regard to all that. But what he really did is he was able to merge evangelical Christianity with Republican politics. And he also promoted the idea that socialism equals atheism equals evil. And
we eat the babies.
Right. Well, that was part of it, right? Like you have to have a bad guy.
Right.
The bad guy is always the atheist. The bad guy is always the socialist or the communist.
Or the Jewish people.
Or the Jewish people.
Or the Catholics.
The bad guy. It evolves what that means.
The flavor of the day, but it's always the same.
The newest bad guy right now is the LGBTQIA plus community. Like
the trans people are who we hate right now.
I'm including that. I'm lumping them all in, but yes, that is the new.
The queer community was so 2010s. Now it's the trans.
Because they've narrowed down. They've realized that you can't be mad at the gay community.
Right.
Because
they're already here.
We've already accepted them.
Yeah.
Right. But trans is on the verge, is on the fence enough for some people that they were able to grab that one still and make that something that they could hold on to.
And it requires...
It shouldn't be.
No, totally. It requires a lot more... I don't want to say acceptance. What is it? It requires a lot more action on the part of the people around them, I think.
What do you mean by that?
Like, somebody who is gay, like that doesn't really change them on the outside, right?
Okay.
It doesn't change. But a person who is trans, if you knew them, quote unquote, before versus after their transition, that requires so much more from an observer.
Sure.
So much more activity, action, work.
I got you.
And there's more required.
And that's why it's more on the fence for a lot of people, because they haven't decided that they're okay with this type of stuff.
Right. But
that was a bad way to put it. Not this type of stuff. It is perfectly acceptable for someone to be trans and not feel comfortable in the gender that they are.
Yeah.
That is
obviously.
I don't want to dismiss the idea the those people who are trans, because it is very important that we acknowledge that they are human beings who deserve to have the rights that they have. And more. And more. Like we should not, there should be, when we look at people, in my opinion, you should see another person.
Right.
Period. Just full stop, the end of the sentence. That's it. There's nothing else there to worry about. It's another person.
Right.
Beyond that, you can take them for how their personality is. You can take them for how you feel about them, but don't judge them for who they are other than how it affects you directly.
Right.
Not in the way you have to visualize the person, but if they are being an asshole at you, then sure, they're an asshole. You can call them an asshole. I got no problem with you calling a trans person an asshole.
If they're
an asshole.
Yeah.
But they better be a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm okay.
Rant over.
Yeah, rant over.
People is people, guys.
Yeah, definitely. During the 1980s and 1990s, there was a war on public schools. And you're going to recognize some of this because we kind of grew up through this.
Mm-hmm.
So evangelicals claimed that public schools were brainwashing kids with socialism.
Yeah. The liberal agenda.
The liberal agenda, yeah. And it's still something that's going on today.
Yeah.
Right?
Pooey.
Hey, wife, I guess that's the end?
But husband, that's just sad.
It doesn't have to be. We are on lots of social media platforms like Twitter. Our handle there is sacrilegious_D.
For D's nuts.
Oh my God. Stop doing that. Anyway, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. There's a link to all of our social media sites at our website.
Ooh, we have a website?
Yeah, it's sacrilegiousdiscourse.com, where you can also find a link to our merch shop.
We have a merch shop?
Yep, we have podcast-themed clothing, mugs, notebooks, and more, as well as an atheist and science-themed products.
Wow, our fans should really go check that out right now.
Definitely. They can get in touch with us by sending an email to sacrilegiousdiscourse@gmail.com. But before they do that, we could really use some help.
Oh yeah? With what?
Well, it's not free running the podcast, and we need some financial support in order to get better equipment, which will free up time so we can concentrate on our podcast and our fans.
Okay, so what should they do?
Head over to patreon.com/sacrilegious discourse and sign up as a contributor on our podcast. Supporters there receive additional bi-weekly episodes that we record just for our Patreon members for as little as $2 a month.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using.
And Apple Podcast reviews help us out tremendously.
Like and subscribe. Leave an Apple review. Join us on Twitter. Support us on Patreon. That's a lot of instructions. Don't forget to say thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.